Look at almost any price tag in your life right now: a coffee, a t-shirt, a subscription, a car, and there's a very good chance it ends in the number 9. Not 8, not 5. 9. 1999, $499. $999,000 for a house that's really a million. One single missing cent, repeated across nearly every price you've ever paid, in almost every store, in almost every country for over a century. And here's what should bother you. That missing cent costs the seller real money in lost revenue every single time on every single sale. So the real question isn't why is this price 99 cents? It's why would millions of businesses across every industry on earth all agree to leave money on the table forever on purpose? This isn't a marketing myth or a coincidence you're imagining. It's one of the most heavily studied phenomena in the entire field of consumer psychology, with a name economists actually use: charm pricing. Researchers have run dozens of controlled studies putting the exact same product at two different prices, say $39 versus $40, to real customers and measured the difference in what people actually bought. One widely cited study out of MIT and the University of Chicago found that a product priced at $39 outsold the identical product priced at $34. Read that again. The higher priced version sold better, purely because of how the price was written. That's not a rumor. That's a controlled experiment with a result strange enough that it got published and replicated. Now, the easy explanation you've probably already heard is left digit bias. Your brain reads left to right, so 1999 registers as basically $19 instead of $20. And that's true as far as it goes. But that explanation alone doesn't fully hold up. Because if left digit bias were the entire story, charm pricing should work identically on every single product every single time with the same strength. It doesn't. Luxury brands almost never use 99-cent pricing. A Chanel bag doesn't get priced at $4,999. High-end restaurants routinely price a steak at exactly $45. No charm pricing at all. If the left-digit trick simply worked on human brains universally, every single seller on earth would use it all the time, with no exceptions. They don't, which means there's a second, more precise mechanism actually deciding when this trick gets used and when it very deliberately doesn't. Here's the piece almost nobody explains properly. A price tag isn't just a number. It's a signal your brain reads for information about the entire product before you've even picked it up. Round, whole numbers, $20, $50, $100, subconsciously signal quality, simplicity, and confidence. That's exactly why a luxury watch, a five-star restaurant entree, or a piece of fine art gets priced in clean round numbers. The seller wants the price itself to say, "We didn't need to trick you. This is simply worth this much." A price ending in 99 cents signals something almost the opposite: bargain, calculation, value hunting. It tells your brain someone did math to get this number as low as it could possibly go for you, which means charm pricing isn't a universal brain hack at all. It's a costume a price wears, deliberately chosen depending on what feeling the seller wants that specific price to give you. So here's where it gets more precise and more calculated than most people realize, because pricing teams don't just flip a coin between 99 cents and a round number. There's an entire discipline inside retail and e-commerce companies, often called pricing strategy or price optimization, whose full-time job is testing exactly which price ending performs best, for which specific product, for which specific customer, in which specific context. And the data behind this is far more granular than 9 just works. Large retailers run what's called A/B price testing constantly, showing slightly different prices to different customer segments online, sometimes changing by literally 1 cent, and measuring the exact impact on both how many people buy and how much total revenue comes in. This is how companies discovered, for instance, that ending a price in a 9 tends to boost sales volume, but ending a price in a 0 or a round number can sometimes boost the perception of quality enough to justify a slightly higher price overall, meaning more total revenue, even with fewer units sold. Which raises the real question this video is actually about. If companies can measure this down to the cent, what's the actual dollar impact of that one missing cent multiplied across an entire company's yearly sales? Here's the mechanism, named plainly. It's called price ending strategy, and it works through at least 3 distinct psychological levers operating at once, not just one. First, left digit bias, the effect where your brain anchors on the leftmost digit. So $19.99 feels closer to $19 than $20, even though you consciously know better. Second, the discount association. Decades of sales, clearance events, and promotions have trained shoppers to associate a 9-ending price specifically with a deal, even outside of an actual sale. Third, and least talked about, the effort signal. A price like $19.99 looks like it required careful calculation to reach, which subtly implies the seller trimmed every possible cent in your favor, even when the actual difference is a single penny. So the reframe here is this: that missing cent was never really about the cent at all. It's a compressed one-character message your brain reads and decodes in a fraction of a second, before you've even processed what the product does. Round price, quality, story. Charm price, bargain story. Same exact product, two completely different first impressions, controlled entirely by whether that final digit is a 0 or a 9. And once you see it this way, you start noticing that companies are choosing that story with real precision, category by category, sometimes even changing it for the exact same product depending on where and how it's sold. A grocery store selling milk will almost always charm price it. A jewelry store selling the exact same carat of gold will almost never charm price the ring, which means there has to be an actual measurable dollar value behind choosing one story over the other. And it's larger and stranger than most people assume. So here's the number. That MIT and University of Chicago study on women's clothing found that switching from a round price to a 9-ending price on the exact same item increased sales by roughly 24%, even when the 9-ending price was technically higher than a nearby, cheaper round number alternative. 24% from changing a single digit. Scale that kind of lift across an e-commerce company processing millions of transactions a year, and a 1-cent pricing decision can realistically shift company-wide revenue by an amount worth multiple millions of dollars annually, all without changing the actual cost of a single item sold. Now, if you think a single missing cent moving millions of dollars sounds extreme, wait until you see what happens when this same psychological lever gets combined with a second pricing trick, because charm pricing rarely works alone in the real world. It's almost always paired with something else on the shelf, something that makes the 99-cent price look even better by comparison. And that pairing is where the real money gets made. Here's the layer most people miss. Charm pricing is frequently deployed right next to what's called an anchor price, a higher, often barely purchased option displayed nearby specifically to make the charm-priced item look like the smart, obvious choice by comparison. Walk down almost any grocery aisle and you'll see a store brand item priced at $3.99 sitting directly beside a name brand version priced at $6.49. The $3.99 doesn't just benefit from ending in a 9. It benefits from being compared instantly and unconsciously against a bigger number sitting 6 inches away on the same shelf. This is why the exact same product can be priced completely differently depending on what's shelved beside it. Pricing teams don't just pick a number in isolation. They design an entire comparison, positioning a charm-priced product against a deliberately higher anchor, so your brain does 2 calculations at once without realizing it. This ends in a 9, so it must be a deal. And this is also cheaper than the thing right next to it, so it must really be a deal. Both signals reinforcing each other on the same shelf in the same half-second glance. Here's why this matters beyond just grocery shelves. This same combination, charm pricing plus a nearby anchor, shows up across nearly every purchase you make once you know to look for it. Streaming subscriptions display a premium tier at an inflated round number, specifically so the middle charm price tier looks reasonable by comparison. Software companies show an expensive enterprise plan, mostly to make their actual target plan, ending in 99, feel like the obvious rational choice. Even restaurant menus quietly place one deliberately overpriced dish near the top, specifically to make everything else on the page look more reasonably priced by comparison. And retailers have gotten remarkably specific about exactly where the sweet spot of this trick lives. Multiple pricing studies have found that the charm pricing effect is strongest at lower price points and gradually weakens as the overall price of an item climbs, which is exactly why you see $19.99 on a t-shirt, but you almost never see $999,999 on a house listing that's actually worth $1 million. Real estate listings do sometimes shave a small amount off a round number, but the psychological lift shrinks dramatically the higher the total price gets, which is precisely why the trick concentrates so heavily in retail, food, and subscription pricing instead of high-ticket purchases. And this is where the story gets genuinely counterintuitive, because it means the humble 99-cent price tag isn't actually the simple universal trick most people assume it is. It's a precisely calibrated tool deployed only within a specific price range, only in specific categories, almost always alongside a matching anchor price, chosen deliberately over an equally available round number alternative that would signal something completely different. The trick isn't really the missing cent at all. It's the entire surrounding architecture the missing cent is embedded inside. So here's the full mechanism, all the way through. A price is never just a number. It's a compressed signal your brain decodes instantly before you've thought about the product at all. A round number signals quality and confidence. A 9-ending number signals bargain and effort on your behalf. Companies choose deliberately between those two signals, category by category, and frequently pair the cheaper feeling signal with a nearby higher anchor price to make the comparison do even more psychological work. None of it happens by accident, and almost none of it costs the company anything real to implement. It's pure positioning, running silently underneath every price tag you've ever glanced at without a second thought. Which leaves an interesting question worth sitting with. As more shopping moves online, where prices can be changed instantly and tested on millions of shoppers in real time instead of printed once on a physical shelf tag, does charm pricing get even more precisely targeted, potentially showing you a personalized price ending based on your own individual shopping behavior? Or does the sheer amount of price transparency online, with comparison tools and price history trackers, start to weaken a trick that depends on you not looking too closely? This is exactly the kind of thing this channel exists to unpack. Not the obvious surface fact that 9 looks cheaper, but the layered, deliberately engineered system of comparison and signaling sitting quietly underneath something as small as a single digit. If you want to keep seeing the real mechanics behind the prices, fees, and deals you encounter every day, subscribe, because next up is a business that seems to be constantly losing money on shipping, constantly running free shipping promotions, and somehow still turning a massive profit. The real reason free shipping is never actually free is stranger and more deliberately hidden in your own cart total than almost anyone expects. Next time you see a price ending in 99 cents, you're not looking at a rounding error. You're looking at a single character chosen deliberately to tell your brain a very specific story. And in the half second it takes you to read it, it already worked.